today I am excited to have AJ Lanigan here with us, who is an expert in immunology from University of South Carolina, Columbia. And today we're going to be talking specifically about beta-glucan. Now, beta-glucan has a tremendous amount of scientific research over the last few decades in the fields of the immune system, cancer, anti-aging, oxidative stress, diabetes, stress reduction, asthma, burns and wound healing, cold and flu support, anti-inflammatory effects, and goes on and on and on. And so it is an incredible nutrient, basically, that I think everybody needs to know about. It's something that I take very often, and it's something I want to get into the science about with AJ here to share with all of you. If you're not taking a beta-glucan, you might consider it. So AJ, welcome to the podcast, man. Good to be talking with you again. It's been probably a year or two since we connected.
Yeah, I'm alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic down here in Columbia, South Carolina. Great to be back in football weather, and life is good. You know, there's still some debate about the alternative, so I'm going to stick where I am for right now. I'll be 72 in December, so I've seen a lot.
72? I thought you were in your 50s still, man.
Well, I trick some people every once in a while. When I go out and talk to people about different things, and I have it's getting harder and harder to guess people's age nowadays, because when I was born, I was raised on a 58 acre farm not too far from here, and the food that I ate, we named the cows. We didn't name all the chickens, but we had our own chickens, we had our own cows, we had our own, livestock. We had about an acre and a half garden. And for like the first 15, 20 years of my life, that's how I ate. Not everybody is blessed with that type of good start out of the gate.
I grew up on fast food. Well, first, it was we would hunt and fish and all that, and meat and potatoes, and then it was fast food, and then and I got, by the time I was 18, I was sick and nearly dead, and then after San Diego, I switched to plant-based diet. Been plant-based ever since, and it's been a game changer for me. But to your point, nowadays most people are just eating primarily processed food, which is not real food, and certainly contributing to a lot of the disease epidemic that we see.
I had a conversation with somebody over the weekend. We went to a football party out by the pool, and they had some Kraft singles there. And they said, hand me a piece of that cheese. I said, no. If you see the package says Kraft singles. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, that's because it's less than 50% milk, cheese. It's got other stuff. They said, never mind.
They can't even call it cheese. Yeah, exactly.
But it's stacked right up in there with all the other quote unquote cheese products. Anyway, it's all about marketing.
Yeah, unfortunately. But let's get into the real conversation today about beta-glucan and the science behind it. And I mean, there are so many studies on beta-glucan, whether it's for cancer, immune system, you name it. But there are different types of beta-glucan. There's different sources, right? The source is important to understand. And, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. So what is beta-glucan? And then let's start getting into, what people need to know about it, how to use it, what it can support, all that kind of stuff.
When we use the term glucan, it's a little bit like using the term paint. If I say go to the store and get me some paint, you're going to get red, you're going to get blue, you're going to get oil-based, you're going to get water-based, you're going to get something that's shiny, you're going to get something that's dull. So paint is not very descriptive. It's not very specific. Same thing with glucan. You can get glucan from mushrooms, you can get it from seaweed, you can get it from bacteria, you can get it from oats and barley. We use baker's yeast, specifically Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Say that 10 times right quick before you go to bed.
I don't think I can say it once.
And tougher to spell. And a specific strain. They've got people now specializing in genetically modifying yeast so that there as much as 70% lipids and fats. Why is that? They can use them for biofuel. We use a strain because we're only interested in the carbohydrate portion. So glucan, specifically beta 1316 glucan, we know the precise molecular structure, makes up about 85% of the carbohydrate. So when we process the product, our job is to get rid of all the fats, get rid of all the proteins, because some people, they have issues with yeast proteins, and so we got to get that stuff out of there, and that leaves us roughly with probably a 97-98% pure carbohydrate, of which 85-89 plus of the 100 is pure glucan. That's what's in our powder. When you swallow it, it goes through the stomach, and actually in the small intestine, you've got what we call Peyer's patches, and there's these little cells called M cells. That stands for microfold, and they literally grab those particles, pull it through the lining of the intestine into the GALT, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. That's where the immune cells first see the glucan and literally start gobbling them up, or phagocytosing. Once inside the macrophages, they actually digest that particle and secrete a water-soluble molecule that's a specific molecular weight that binds to the receptor of immune cells, and as I like to say, turns the Woody Allen immune cells into Schwarzenegger cells. Now, that's a long explanation, but we got videos, we got cartoons that can actually show this to you. But we were actually the first. I was on the team that was on the first to show that a material that was taken by mouth could actually be taken up into the gut. We did that up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's published in the medical journals now. Actually got pictures. What we did was we took a dye and dyed the beta glucan powder before we fed it to mice, and then after they assumed room temperature, we plucked the blood out and showed the glucan particles inside those cells. So this is a proven fact. Up until that time, people thought it was impossible for it to be taken up orally. I was the first person out there actually marketing an orally dosed product that was proven to be taken up. And of course, now there are not a few hundred. When I started, it was like 700 or 800 studies on glucan on PubMed. Now there's over 200,000. And so this is a topic of great interest, and it continues to be of great interest because as you opened the show, you talked about beta glucan being an immunomodulator. You talk about wound healing. You talk about gut health and digestion. You talk about anti-inflammatory activity. There's a long list of things that the immune system umbrella covers, and beta glucan causes those things to work more, better, and faster.
So why do you choose this strain of beta glucan from baker's yeast versus from mushrooms or some other source?
Mushrooms are probably the oldest, and it also had to do with where we are in the world. If you're in Southeast Asia, you're in Japan, mushrooms have been in the cornucopia of health for thousands of years. I like mushrooms on top of my food. I like them. Now, if you eat mushrooms raw, I would suggest you knock that stuff off the base of it. You may not want to eat that. But that's a water-soluble glucan molecule. In fact, when you process glucans from mushrooms, they actually boil it and they can get the glucan out that way. So I could have gone and used mushroom. I could have used barley. I could have used oats. I could have used seaweed. But what I did, Nathan, I went and put materials actually in the hands of universities. and teaching hospitals and had them actually test these things side by side. And we found that this particular Saccharomyces cerevisiae and the strains we use had the most immunological activity. We can actually measure side by side what the immune system does and to what degree. The second best glucan in the world is actually a drug called PSK Crestin. You can only get it as a prescription out of Japan. It's $10 a gram, and you got to use 3 to 6 grams a day. So you talk about $900 to $1,800 a month. That's the second best one. Our product, 8x the amount of immune response versus PSK Crestin.
Yeah, it's a big difference. So that's the main reason, is because you see a higher immunological response. The immune cells are getting a better response from this particular beta glucan.
Correct. And I got this idea. We've over the years we've got 6 different studies showing all the top, not just brands, but also the sources, and not just testing other beta glucans. We tested against different vitamins and minerals, probiotics. We tested against selenium. We tested against vitamin C. We tested against resveratrol. We found drastic differences in the immune response. But then we turned around and said, well, what if we married our beta glucan with vitamin C? Well, we found out we get a little bit more of an immune bump than just the glucan alone. Well, what about with resveratrol? Again, we get just a little bit more of a bump. What about with selenium? So we've actually measured side by side, and then we've measured as a combination and identified a list of things that actually further improve the immune response, and you get the benefits associated with resveratrol, the benefits beyond associated with selenium and so forth. So it's a great process. It's called irrefutable science.
So, when I've talked to you in the past, there's questions around, the fact that it's coming from yeast, and you've told me that you don't have to worry about anyone worrying about yeast, right? Because of the process, you basically just process it down to it's just carbohydrate of the beta glucan itself. You've basically taken everything else off of it, and so there's no
it
yeast
is
protein
it
in
is
there.
the protein. It is the protein that causes these people the problems. You get rid of all the protein. The reason we get rid of the lipids is the lipids seem to block the uptake. And so we've got to get rid of both the proteins and the fats. And carbohydrates, I would refer to as an inert substance. They don't react with anything. So that allows it to be used alongside chemo, radiation. It can be alongside any of your other medications. It can be, whatever people are using it with, they don't have any problem. You probably don't have any refined sugar in your house. But if you took a 5-pound bag of pure sugar and put it up on top of your refrigerator, you could come back 10 years from now, tap the bag, nothing's changed. It doesn't oxidize, nothing. It doesn't react with anything. The only way you can mess it up is if you spit in it, okay, at right temperature. You start a science project, or you put it in a frying pan and get it hot enough to caramelize. Other than that, carbohydrates are like nature's armor. Look at the exoskeletons that are on lobster, crab, and so forth. They're made up of chitin. Again, a similar complex carbohydrate to glucans.
Yeah, which they can, they leave their exoskeletons behind, right? And it lasts for a very, very long time.
Yep. You can grind it up and turn it into glucosamine now.
Glucosamine. So the other thing I wanted to ask you was, what does the research say about beta glucan and cancer specifically?
Okay. Again, I want to emphasize The beta-glucan molecule itself does not react with cancer. What it does is that molecule binds, think of a key into we call it a receptor, but a key switch that activates immune cells. Now, what is the immune system supposed to be doing? It's supposed to surveil, identify, attack, and eliminate things that don't belong there. That includes cancer cells. You've got cells such as natural killer cells. What they do all the time, all day long, if they're working properly, is they look at a cell, smiley face. They look at a cell, smiley face. They look at a cell, smiley face. They look at a cell. Ooh, that doesn't have a smiley face. Bada bing, bada boom, you're out of here. It doesn't matter if it's a cancer cell, if it's a precancerous cell, maybe it's a cell that's invaded with herpes. Maybe it's a dead and or dying cell. But this is one of the various ways in which an immune system that's working properly prevents you from ever having to diagnose. I have people call me all the time, Nathan, and I say, hey, I hate to meet you under these circumstances, but the reason we're having this conversation is because your immune system has failed you. And I'm not going to try to convince you to or not to do standard of care. That's between you and whoever you're getting your advice with. I would say understand all the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything, then make your informed decision. But as part of the process, you have to be supporting your immune system. You have to be getting that immune response up because, again, that's the only reason we're having the conversation.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Thomas Lodi famously said it in my documentary film, Cancer, the Integrative Perspective. He said, there is a cure for cancer. It's called your immune system. And if you have a fully functioning immune system, you wouldn't have to worry about cancer.
And he's an MD and a JD. I've shared the podium with him many times. Great books. He's got one of the greatest books on vitamin C that's ever been written.
So how does it support with an anti-inflammatory process? Like how does it support inflammation? Because inflammation we know is one of the underlying causes of cancer. We know it's an underlying, it's an underlying condition with every major chronic disease, whether it's diabetes, autoimmune disease, neurodegenerative disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, right? Inflammation and chronic inflammation is associated with every single one of those diseases. And chronic inflammation in the literature is a direct cause of cancer specifically. So how does beta-glucan support the anti-inflammatory response?
People need to understand that inflammation is a two-edged sword. It can be a good thing. For example, if the house catches on fire, you want to have, the fire hose, you want to have everything to put that fire out quickly, okay? You also want a rapid response to mitigate the damage. So if you break your arm, if you sprain your ankle, if you get a splinter, that's the acute inflammation. And again, this is the immune system that is causing this. All that pus, mainly dead neutrophils, okay? Chronic inflammation, which is a term you well used, is when the immune system doesn't turn off. It just keeps making chemicals, and those chemicals are pro-inflammatory, continuing to do damage to healthy tissue. Damaged tissue may very well turn into precancerous tissue. So that's the path. So a person needs to understand, again, beta-glucan as an immunomodulator. Some people have switches in their house that simply flip on or flip off the lights. Some people have a little dial or a little lever where they can gradually raise the intensity or lower the intensity of the lights. What beta-glucan does, again, when it activates immune cells, they know where they need to be. Beta-glucan helps them in that process of self-regulation. And they will then mitigate that chronic inflammation.
Yeah, so they basically help regulate the pro-inflammatory cytokines that the immune system sends out, helps to basically reduce those, down regulate those cytokines so there's less inflammation. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
that's exactly right. And also, if you've got a sluggish or immune system that's not working properly, part of the reason you've got chronic inflammation is damage that's already been done that didn't get cleaned up.
Right.
And so you've got that sluggish immune system that's still hanging around. If the immune system working correctly, you'll have phagocytes, vacuuming up all the trash, getting it out of there. Boom, inflammation is gone. Well,
Now,
that's
now,
that's one of many examples.
yeah, and so I mean, to basically elaborate on that for people, the reason why the immune system might be struggling in a lot of cases is because of the constant damage that is happening to the body through
Yes.
stress. We know mental, emotional stress downregulates the immune system, right? It's activating a sympathetic nervous system response. Too much cortisol and norepinephrine and so forth on a constant basis is going to downregulate the immune system. Heavy metals and toxins are going to affect the immune system. Not enough sleep is going to affect the immune system. A poor diet, too much processed food, too much highly processed sugar is going to affect the immune system. Not
It's back a
exercising.
beer, Doritos and chips, while you're watching the football game, shots, not getting enough sleep. Understand that a big part of the immune system's job is to kill stuff and blow stuff up. So if you put it in the context of an army, they get out there, they're digging their foxholes, and all of a sudden, here comes a dump truck dumping a bunch of garbage into foxhole. Now these soldiers, instead of readying for a battle, should a battle arise, they're busy messing with all the junk
Right.
that you just dumped into their house. So you're not you're not you're not helping yourself at all. Do I say never have a beer, never have a drink, never go to a midnight movie, whatever? But if it's part of your lifestyle, your life is not going to be very good as long as you maintain that path. You
Right.
won't live as long, and the quality of your life will suffer.
Exactly. That's why I always teach, get the fundamentals under control first. Good sleep, stress reduction, meditation, prayer, spiritual path, good diet, mostly plant-based as much as possible, real food, exercise,
Mhm.
stress reduction. All these things really work on the fundamentals. And then
Yeah,
supplements can support, they're meant to supplement, right? They're
sure,
meant to
sure.
supplement and support a healthy lifestyle. And so the challenge is, and I take supplements and I recommend supplements and I, certain supplements that I research and I believe in, like this one here, I'm going to recommend it all day long because I've seen the research. We see the results. I take it personally. But at the same time, I never tell somebody, yeah, keep doing all the terrible things that are causing your diseases and just take this supplement. It's going to solve all your problems. It doesn't work that way, right?
We actually put beta glucan into some topicals. And if you get a burn, okay, and I've had ladies, take pictures or whatever. Had this really wonderful young lady. She's getting ready to be married. She's trying to impress uh, her groom to be, and she's going to cook him fried chicken on Sunday afternoon. Well, she's not that great a cook yet, and nobody's explained to her you don't drop wet chicken into boiling grease. And it literally exploded all over, burning her arms, burning her neck. Now, this is a gal that's going to be getting her bridal photos made in
Mm,
about a week. And
ouch.
so she was already taking our 100 milligram product. Okay. So our immune system's in good shape. We also put it in a topical, which she applied, and she took before and after pictures. Absolutely incredible. A couple of days later, you could not tell her bridal pictures were phenomenal. These healing processes that I'm describing are handled by your immune system and your immune response.
Mm.
People that heal slowly and people that don't heal completely, these are prime examples of people where their immune system is not where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And it's not just the 70 and 80-year-old, by the way. You've got people in their 20s and 30s, they'll get a little cut or scratch, or they'll fall and skin their knee. 2 weeks later, it's still scabbed over and doesn't look like it's healing very well. Again, I would point to that and say, wow, you need to step up your immune support.
Yeah, well, and we'll put a link below this video with discounts and everything for our community here who's watching this to go and get your product specifically. It's the one that I take. It's the one you're talking about, and that I personally recommend. But what I wanted to, ask you too is there anyone who shouldn't take beta glucan or who should be worried about it? Let's say they have autoimmune disease, or they have, you kind of mentioned it's fine whether someone's going through conventional treatment. Like, is there any cases where someone maybe shouldn't take beta glucan? And is there any side effects that they need to worry about?
That's an excellent question. As you're reading through, again, a couple of 100,000 studies, you won't find much, if anything, on pregnancy. You won't find much of anything on autoimmune disorders. You won't find much, if anything, on transplants or grafts. The research has not been done. Now, that given, there's also no reports of people that have been pregnant, people with autoimmune disorders, and people with transplants or grafts having a problem. I want to err on the side of caution. In fact, I want to be overcautious. So if you are a transplant recipient and the doctor currently has you on drugs that are designed to suppress and depress your immune system, I would tell you to not consider this product. Not because there's any evidence it would hurt you, but there's not been good work showing you're bulletproof. The same thing I would say if you have an autoimmune disorder, okay? If you've got MS, if you've got other, it must be 90 going on 100 autoimmune disorders, and the list keeps growing, particularly if you are taking drugs, steroids, chemos, and so forth to shut down the immune response, I would say it would be prudent not to be using the product. Pregnant women, again, we don't know. I can tell you my daughter has given birth to a couple of wonderful children. The boy's mean as a snake. The little girl is as sweet as as she can be, and she never missed a day. Don't use that testimonial. I'm saying get with your pediatrician, get with your classically trained medical doctor, put them on the phone. I'll be happy to detail the mechanism of action. That's what the doctors need to understand, because I've had people with rheumatoid arthritis, people with many different types. I won't say ignore, but I say always get your doc involved. Let's have a solid conversation. You need to be seeing that doc on a regular basis anyway, and they can monitor you. But as a classical rule, I would say no. I would not recommend it for those three classes.
Transplant, pregnant woman, and if you're on some autoimmune disease drugs specifically.
Yeah, if they're taking drugs, the rule is for me, if they're taking drugs that are designed to shut down the immune response, they need to back away, but involve the medical doctor if there's question. I don't know if you can tell, I got kind of a thick neck. Okay, I swell up sometimes from flying coach. Okay, so I fall asleep, my head rocks down, and the little Google that holds, that hangs down, as I'm snoring, it beats that little piece of meat and it swells up. Yeah. So this happened to me about 10 years ago, and I get up, and I had eaten a bunch of oysters earlier that evening, and I'm thinking, boy, am I come down with hepatitis? Have I come to, have I got the red tide? What? So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I get dressed. I go to the hospital. There's nobody there. They check me in. They look. They said, "Okay, your little whatever is swollen. Probably nothing wrong, but we'll have the doctor look at you." He did. Same thing. He wanted to give me a steroid. He wanted to give me an antibiotic, and he wanted to give me something else. But he wanted to give me IVs. I said, no, 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 no. Just go down to the pharmacy, give me the pills. If you feel that. So anyway, we better had a fight over that. But the long and the short of it is, I was given a steroid, and I've got to be honest with you. I played a lot of football when I was young. In fact, I played about 3.5 years of semi-pro football. After about 4 days on the steroids, I kind of felt like I could strap on the pads and maybe go about 3 plays because it makes all the pain of everything go away. But on a 2-week course, I didn't skip my beta glucan because that type of use was simply for that inflammation. But people know if they're on drugs that are designed to shut off immune response. And those would be the ones I would zero in on.
Gotcha. So just to kind of recap here, I mean, you guys have been pulling a lot of this research together on this beta glucan site, which is great. A lot of what the research points to is immune system support, cancer through the immune system, anti-aging, asthma, stress, diabetes, burns and wound healing you talked about, cold and flu, and anti-inflammatory support. Is that right? Those are the top kind of 9 benefits that you've seen through the literature?
Yep. Betaglucan.com. You can't buy anything there. It's strictly for education.
I love it. And as you said, we were talking beforehand too. I mean, you can just go to PubMed, right? And you can type in Glucan, for example, and see over 200,000 results on that by itself.
Yeah, and there were about 700-800 when I started.
Jeez. And we look at Glucan and cancer, looking at 13,000 results. We look at beta glucan by itself as well, over 20,000. So there's lots of research over the years. And appreciate you taking the time to really dive into this. And so, yeah, for everyone tuning in, if you want to use beta glucan for yourself, obviously, if you're dealing with any of the things that AJ talked about, whether it's a implant, transplant, and where you're on kind of a permanent steroid or immune system blocker, autoimmune situation like that, maybe talk to your doctor and see if it's right for you. Obviously, it's not, it's something that you need to determine. For generally everybody else, whether somebody has cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you name it, and they're just looking for general health support or in helping their bodies to, prevent disease. Again, supporting the immune system is what it's about, right?
Absolutely. And without an immune system, they did a study many, many years ago. I don't know who funds some of this stuff, but they showed without an immune system, your flesh would start leaving the bones within 72 hours. So it's kind of important.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What a crazy study. But it's good to know. We need it every single
you
second
got more
of our
bugs
life.
in on and around you than you've got body cells.
Yeah.
So you can't see them, but they're there.
So I'll put a link below this video for everyone with a special discount to this specific beta glucan that we're talking about. You can go check that out for yourself. It's the one I take. It's one that AJ has spent how many years now working on this?
About 28 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say almost 30. I thought it was 30. So yeah, almost 30 years. So
one of my good friends, professor, just retired, Dr. Vaslav Vitka at the University of Louisville, has done many a study. I think he's had over 200 plus studies, several textbooks, written several books, actually on my ingredient. He and I met in Louisville a couple of months before he retired, and he says, "Hey, AJ, you're one of the last of the old guard. When are you going to retire? Get somebody else to show up and say, hey, this is good stuff. You should use it." I said, "I think I make it look too easy."
Yeah. Um, well, good, AJ. Thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Always good to connect with you, and thanks for doing what you do and helping people take back control of their health by empowering their immune systems. It's something that we all can benefit from. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Have a happy day to everybody. Be safe, be healthy.
All right. Take care.